Welcome to Blue Ash College. My name's Robin Leitner. I'm the interim dean here at the college, and tonight we're hosting one of our many events this year that celebrates our 50th anniversary. Tonight is a special event, and it's designed to feature our interprofessional experience that we have with our health programs. Our interprofessional experience prepares student learners to collaborate, providing hands-on, high-quality, team-based care focused on interdisciplinary communication and optimized patient outcomes in both ambulatory and inpatient settings. In response to the ongoing opioid crisis, this year's simulation focuses on treating a patient during a heroin overdose. Our interprofessional education experience brings together students from the health education, medical assisting, nursing, psychology and social work, radiologic technology programs, as well as the Blue Ash Fire and EMS departments. As a part of this experience, we're eager to hear about statewide efforts to combat opioid abuse, and we invited our speaker from the Attorney General's office. Jennifer Lloyd is the Director of Statewide Outreach on Substance for Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine. In this role, Jennifer leads a team tasked with providing community outreach to address the opioid epidemic. Jennifer travels the state to assist communities with developing and implementing strategic plans, including grant assistance, programming, and training. Jennifer recently received the Attorney General's Pride Award for recognition of her efforts to combat the opioid epidemic. Thank you so much for coming this evening to hear about this very important topic, and please let's welcome Jennifer Lloyd.
Thank you very much. What I primarily want to talk to you about, and what most people want to hear about now, are what can I do to help? Because everyone can help, and we need everybody to help. But first, what I'm going to do is kind of lay out for you where we're at, because I think it's important. People will say to me, everybody knows about this. No, not to the degree that everybody needs to know about this. And where it really struck home for me, I was presenting at a farmers union convention, and presenting alongside me, or after me, was a gentleman named Roger, who's from this area. You may have seen him. Salt of the earth guy, you know, shakes your hand disappears. I talked to him, he's like, I just got in from working on the grain bins, you know. So he has 3 children. 2 died of an overdose. His 3rd is in recovery. And after his 2 children died, he received a letter that said how glad they were that his children had died, because that's how we're going to solve this epidemic. So when I say people don't understand, you cannot understand the disease of addiction and write a letter like that or say 3 strikes you're out. You cannot understand. You cannot understand that this affects everybody, from babies to senior citizens. Everybody. You cannot understand that when we look at death records, that's a fun thing to do, from 2015, that 75% of those people started with a prescription opioid. So if you knew that, you wouldn't say it's a choice. It wasn't a choice when my friend Miles was in the hospital he had a lung removed. He was in there for 8 months, sitting there. Every time you feel a little pain, pumping that morphine. When he got out, you know, fentanyl, we'll talk about fentanyl, 100 times stronger than morphine. He drank it straight. That's how addicted he was. It's too expensive, though, so he switched to heroin. He's doing great now, though. After at least three relapses that I know of, and jail time. Here's our national data. 2016 in the United States, 63,600 people died from accidental drug overdose. That's 174 people every day. That's like a 727 crashing every single day in the United States. Imagine if that was happening, we'd respond differently. Wouldn't we? You sure would. Second one is really about the drugs fentanyl and carfentanil. So I'm going to give a little kind of story that I think hopefully will answer some questions. First of all, fentanyl, 100 times stronger. Carfentanil, and I'm going to get into that a little bit more later, 10,000 times stronger than morphine. 10,000 times. You see these busts, and they say, there's a bust in New York, enough to kill the entire state of New Jersey and New York. And it was a couple of packages of carfentanil. A sugar packet of carfentanil can kill 10,000 people. That's what we're seeing. So people say, why would that be, right? Because I'm a drug dealer. And by the way, this has always kind of mystifies me. Why are we so mad at the people addicted? Shouldn't we be more mad at the people trafficking it? I don't really hear that, though. What I hear is, I don't want to pay for those people. I don't hear them say, you know what? We got to do something about these traffickers, man. They're killing people. That's not what we hear. So people will say, why would they spike with fentanyl? Because you're killing your customers, right? So here's why. And here's a story. I'll tell a lot of stories. Because people remember. I like to tell stories because you remember and then you repeat them. In 2010, I met this woman, Kathy, whose son, Benny, at 19, on his father's birthday, died of a heroin overdose. His brother found him. Trauma, we'll talk about. And she said, about 2 weeks after he died, she said, oh my gosh, Jennifer, the greatest thing, his friends are all getting together in the park for a vigil for my son. I'm going. So I'm going to make cupcakes and bring balloons. Won't that be great? Yeah, that's great. Calls me back, crying. That's not what it was, Jennifer. They knew they were meeting the dealer who sold Benny the heroin he took because, boy, that must be good. When you are addicted, your brain that's all you care about. It changes. It changes. So when they mixed with fentanyl, it was kind of marketing, right? So I'm a dealer in Marion, Ohio. I got a bunch of heroin. I gotta get rid of it. I'm gonna dye it with a little blue. I'm gonna call it blue drop heroin. Everyone's like, man, that stuff's good. Now, if you're just out of detox, just out of any kind of recovery center, you're a new user, but it kills you, right? Thank goodness for Narcan. I heard from the American Hospital Association last week. In the first 2 quarters of 2017, the hospital systems that they record had 20,000 overdoses reported. 20,000. So like 40,000 for the year, right? Yeah. To me, that's a scary, horrible number, but it also shows how great we're doing. If we didn't have all these programs that people do, I can't even imagine our death rate. When they say 20,000 people show up at the hospital in an overdose state. They're alive, though. They're alive. Our life expectancy dropped 2 years in a row because of this. If that occurs again, based on 2017 numbers, which will be worse, I hear between 40 and 70%. That'll be the first time since the Spanish flu, a century ago, that in 3 years in a row, our life expectancy declined. That's pretty significant, right? Every single age group is affected. Everyone. Deaths from the prescriptions, opioids, are on the decline. Again, because of the great work, awareness, education that has occurred. I'm going to speak very briefly. Mr. DeWine filed a lawsuit against Purdue and some others. And, you know, I'm one of those social media people, and I read these comments because I want to know what's being said when I'm out in communities. And what gets said to my face is often different than what's posted on social media, because I work for the Attorney General, and they're not going to tell me some of the stuff they really want to say. So I read the social media, and we do the lawsuit, and I see comments like, well, that's really stupid. Like, who are we going to go after next? Car manufacturers? And these guys lied. You know, Attorney General's office job is to go after people who do things like deceptive marketing. People call us because they have a lemon car, right? Well, you got manufacturers who knowingly were distributing, promoting these drugs, educating physicians that they were non-addictive. That's deception, right? So we sue them, which, you know, people kind of were like, well, why didn't you do that sooner? Lawsuits take a while, especially ones you think you can win. And they'd already been sued, so you have to come up with creative reasons. Purdue just announced that they're going to cease marketing opioids to doctors. That's a really significant thing. Really significant. They're the primary. They got the most market share. But I want you to also hear Mr. DeWine's response, because I will tell you he's mad. Mad. Purdue Pharma's announcements that they will no longer send out sales reps to promote OxyContin to doctors is a victory for everyone. But it's too little, too late. It is a decision that should have been made years ago and should now be made by all of their makers of opiate pain medications. Purdue Pharma and other makers of opioid pain medications fundamentally changed the prescribing culture of doctors in this country, resulting in tens of thousands of deaths and billions of dollars in economic cost. They have an obligation to now re-educate the American public and the medical community about the real danger of these drugs. And while we are happy they are stopping the lies, it is simply not enough to stop what they are doing. Purdue Pharma needs to actively work to undo the damage they have done. If they are truly serious about this, they could lead the way in cleaning up the mess they created and pay their fair share to fund desperately needed treatment, prevention education, naloxone, and expansion of the foster care system. Now is the time to step up to the plate, do what's right, and take responsibility for their actions once and for all. How about that? Last line, we're in the top 3. But what I also want to point out is we're also very recognized nationally for the great work here. The team, the outreach team that I lead, talks about this all the time. We get calls all the time. And they'll say, calling you is like calling the future, like you're 2 years ahead of us. Yeah. Carol was just in Virginia to doing national meetings. She's called there because of the great work we're doing. So we have to remember when we see all this, gosh, if not for the work that everyone does, our numbers, I don't even know what they would be. We are a hub. 2016, Ohio lost 4,050 people. What's sad about that is people are kind of used to it. 4,050 people. Just like nationally, fentanyl, big deal. Car fentanyl, way up. Here's one that most people don't talk about, and it's kind of interesting when I do talk about it. Cocaine is now killing more people than heroin. Anybody knew that? Everybody should know that. You know why? It's got fentanyl in it. 80% of the cocaine deaths test positive for fentanyl. This one's a little confusing though, because if you're a cocaine user, you maybe didn't start with pills. You didn't progress to heroin, so you tolerance. They got tolerance. If If you're a cocaine user and it's got fentanyl, what do you think your chances are? Particularly if somebody doesn't have Narcan. We are in a very dangerous time, folks. You know, and people will look at us and go, stop. You don't think it's in marijuana? What they're doing now is a lot of the cartels that started here, they started in southern Ohio with marijuana grow operations, which they didn't really like. It's a lot of work and it's not very profitable. What it did is establish for them routes. And then when people like Purdue got us all addicted, us as in Ohio, they have this great market for heroin. Now, it's a business. So if you're a cartel and you start to see your product sales going down, what do? You're all college kids. Business. Product sales going down, you can lower your price, improve the quality, i.e. fentanyl, or add product line. In comes meth and cocaine. Meth is way up. We're starting to see some good numbers. Some counties reporting lower death rates, and we get excited about that. But what if they're just switching to meth? It takes 7 years to kill you, generally, as opposed to heroin killing you much faster. I don't know. Maybe it is good news. I hope so. It's just an example about carfentanil. It's an animal tranquilizer. And I remember when I first heard about it, it's April 2015, and I get notified that there was about 240 overdoses in 3 days in Akron, Ohio. What's happened? Carfentanil happened. So I call an ER. Call an ER, see what we can do. You know what? Nothing. I got yelled at for 20 minutes. You know what we need? More doctors. You know what we need? Referral to treatment. Their body after body coming into the hospital, and they don't know what this is. Carfentanil. It's where you start to hear Narcan is administered 12 times. Someone called me the other day, and they were like mad about, you know what? I talked to an EMS guy, and they're so mad. Like the other day, it's the same guy in 6 hours. He's like taking him to the hospital, or they're reviving him with Narcan, and then 2 hours later, he's overdosing, he's overdosing. This can stay in your body for days. Narcan is slow acting, about 20 minutes. So if you've taken an opioid that lasts 24 hours, what do you think happens? Narcan wears off, opiate kicks back in. That's why you have to, people say, should I call 911? Is this a medical emergency? Yes. Call 911. The dot next to the penny is the amount of carfentanil that can kill you. It's why people think places like libraries who are seeing overdoses in their bathrooms, because in a library it's public. They come in there, it's warm in the winter, air conditioning in the summer. They're going to leave the library, go to a place that's not safe. Maybe they're going to get robbed or their drugs stolen. They're hiding them in books so they can come back and use in the morning, overdose in the bathroom. That amount of residue could kill somebody. A little 6-year-old walking in with his Dr. Seuss book, you know. Get Narcan. That's the good news. A lot of less pills. And here's a point I'm going to make really kind of strongly. I have a friend who is sober about a year. He's a good friend of mine. And I'm in the car with them. They're actually helping me move one weekend. And they're talking about, oh man, remember when we used to go through everyone's trash can and they think they could dispose these pills in coffee grounds, and we found them in the coffee grounds. And they're looking in your trash can. They started to learn that people are putting in coffee grounds or kitty litter. So guess what they're doing? Going in your trash looking for coffee grounds, kitty litter. We have to dispose. About 75 to 80% of addiction begins in the medicine cabinets. I met a woman. she said her son died. And while he was trying to get sober, she had gone through breast cancer. And she said, so I had a bunch of Vicodin, Percocets, and Oxys. And I thought, I'm just going to keep 2. Because, it's kind of a pain to go back to the doctor, right? Just keep 2, just in case. She put him in a Tylenol bottle in her underwear drawer. When her son died, she looked for him. They were gone. He found them. Get rid of 2. So the reason I'm going to do this little demonstration is really to show you more about warning signs, but it's also for you to understand why we're seeing, I think it's like a 39% increase in like Hep C rates. Is that about right? HIV rates? 400%. How about that? And it costs, what, $200,000 for treatment of that? $1 million, and yeah. Kind of expensive. So when you're using heroin, understand that your brain's changed, that this is the most important thing in your life. It matters more than a drink of water. It matters more than your baby. It matters more than your family. Your brain is saying, if you don't get this, you won't survive. First thing in the morning you wake up, I got to go get your heroin. You leave your kids home by themselves in harm's way. Devil's drug, that's what they call it. So you're going to go, maybe at McDonald's. In fact, I saw a drug deal at McDonald's in Mason last time I was here, this area, in McDonald's. Here's why. It's why McDonald's, Home Depot, Walmart, Speedways. It's why you're starting to see bathrooms people at McDonald's lock their bathrooms, because this is happening. Because if I'm a drug dealer, I'm not going to look for 9555, right? I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to meet you at McDonald's, straight jump off the highway. Straight jump off. And we know this occurs because we see the EMS Narcan runs for overdoses. So I'm going to go to McDonald's. I got to get heroin because I am so sick. Throwing up. And I'm not using to feel good. I'm using to get to work because otherwise I am sick. So I'm going to go to McDonald's and I meet my dealer. And, man, I forgot my paraphernalia. But you know what? I have a cut-off soda can. So I'm going to use that to cook. Warning sign. Cut off soda cans. Okay? Anything you can cook in. I got a Bic lighter. You can get those burn marks from lighters. That's a warning sign. So I'm going to cook it. It's water soluble. I don't have any water. I'm going to maybe a lot of rain today, right? I'm going to get some of that puddle water. That's what I'm going to use. I'm going to use that. I'm going to cook it. I'm going to filter it with this needle that was on the floor that my friend used yesterday. I'm going to filter it with cigarette butt that was on the ground, cotton ball. I'm going to tie off my arm. I don't have like one of those hospital tourniquets, right? Shoelaces, missing, broken shoelaces, missing spoons. Cook with a spoon. Can't tell you how many parents say, my spoons are all gone. I'm like, thought they were eating cereal in their room. No, I watch my spoons. Missing shoelace, I'm going to tie it off. They're all broken. My belt, I'm going to take my belt off. I'm going to tie it. I'm going to bite it and pull it. Belts with bite marks. I had a mom say, I went home. Every single one of my kids' belts had bite marks, and I knew. And I'm going to shoot this. I'm not using antiseptic. I'm not necessarily shooting here. I'm shooting somewhere. And often I'm going to cover those track marks with tattoos. friend of mine's daughter used to shoot in the back of her neck. She used her dog's urine for tests, kept it in a little pouch. They're smart. It's the most important thing in their life. You can be really smart. I can't imagine that anybody thinks that what you just put in your arm is sanitary, right? And so you're going to see the veins, that so much infection, people having heart attacks, people who have been clean 5 years, and then 5 years their liver fails, their kidney fails, their heart fails. When we start to see nursing homes filling up with 32-year-olds who are going to be there the rest of their life, that's the other side that no one talks about. But what? There's hope. I have these as handouts. Mr. DeWine put together what he believes are some of the most important things for Ohio to recover. You guys have handouts. I don't want to go through them too much. I want to get into solutions. But, more treatment, more law, all of it, right? We need a lot more business engagement. It's kind of been like last to the table, which is very strange. Like, you don't think your employees have drug issues? Huh. That's what we used to hear from schools. Oh, Jennifer, we don't have any drug problems at my school. Huh, that's interesting. I wonder, could I come study your school? Because that's quite remarkable. I'd like to learn what you're doing. I really never got that invitation. Schools now are doing extraordinary work. Extraordinary. Very important, we also put out a prevention report. We have an ongoing prevention committee. We really need to have K through 12 education. Really need to have it. So everyone's working toward it. Some schools are doing it. We revised a lot of what we can offer. Attorney General's office, this is not our area, but we're pretty good influencers. The heroin unit that Carol and I are part of started in 2013. Not like we weren't doing the work before, we just kind of got organized. The woman in the picture and her husband lost their daughter Marin. We did a video, I think it's got like 13 million views. Heidi worked on our team for a little while, but it's hard to live this, 24/7. This team, we have been to every county in the state of Ohio, varying degrees. But we have a car we use so much. In state cars, they kind of are supposed to give to you and take back. We have something we call the Heroine mobile. It stays with us. It's out for an oil change, so I have a Malibu today. That's a prevention report. You can Google that. But what I want to talk about are things. If you're thinking about anything like you want to do not, before you start, look for what's already being done. There's so much good work. And I'm going to kind of give a few examples, particularly a recent one with the kids from OSU. It doesn't have to be something massive. It really doesn't. We can all do something. So we try to cite simple things that you could do tomorrow. And there's a lot of them. And a lot of them just have to do with compassion and understanding. So in the book that I have out, there is certainly we need to use social media more. And you guys know more how to reach your age group. I think, I use Facebook, which probably for you guys is like, that's for people like Jennifer. But I don't use Twitter, I don't use Instagram, even though I now have my new fancy iPhone X. Lots more education in schools, and there's lots of guidelines about that available. And our team is very willing to help get organized. We help communities, we develop action plans, it's kind of what we do. We're not bringing a lot of money or anything to the table, which people seem to think we have, and we don't. We're like the Wonder Bread and Cheese lunch office. Don't start a website without looking at what's out there, because many of them will turn over their template that costs them $100,000, but they'll give it to you for much less. So important to understand signs and symptoms. Kind of what I just did. I mean, how many of you knew all those symptoms? Any of them? Some of you probably know. There's a terrific video called Let's Face Heroin. Put it on social media. Let people know. Try to, when you're a parent, you don't want to believe that your kid is using heroin, right? So, I'll talk to parents and they'll say, man, I found like these little pieces of foil in my daughter's room. And I'm like, what is she doing with foil from the grill? It wasn't foil from the grill. She was cooking the tar heroin, right? What's she doing with cut up straws? Are you guys making necklaces out of cut up straws again? No, she was snorting with those, right? It's very, got to pay attention. If you think there's a problem, there probably is a problem, but you need to know how to talk to them without shame. There's plenty of shame. There's a book out called Baffled by Addiction. It's for families trying to struggle with this because it's very challenging, how to stop enabling or when you should. It's very challenging. Your instinct is to save your child, right? Mom, man, I just need 20 bucks, right? No. Miles, who ended up living with us, the guy that I told you about got addicted, calls me one day. He called me, Mama Jen. Oh, Jen, I'm in Cincinnati, and I just got robbed. My wallet's gone. I have no money. You think you can wire me like $150? I'm stuck here in Cincinnati. I can't get back. Nope. Why not? Because you're lying to me. Find a way back, Miles. You're pretty creative. He found a way back. Shows up at my house. He's lost 12 pounds in a week. Shaken. He was in withdrawal. Could have sent him the money, right? That's easier. Sure, Miles. Oh my gosh, Miles, I can't believe you got robbed. We see a lot of trauma. When we go, the trauma from this is extraordinary right now. We have a lot of what we call compassion fatigue, particularly for first responders. And when I say first responders, I don't mean just EMS, law enforcement. I mean nurses. Nurses are worn out. They are exhausted. People are doing this are exhausted. When people are in recovery, sometimes what we ask them to do, go thank them for saving your life. Go thank them. There's a lot more peer support. Very important component of treatment. You can't just go on medication-assisted treatment. You need counseling. Lots in that book about mentoring, how to build coalition, all kinds of things that can be done. What we see a lot of is in kind of these zones, the faith community. We started working with the faith community probably pretty strongly about 2.5 years ago. And it's very interesting because I asked a pastor who came to our first event at Ohio Christian University, I said, so Jerry, where have you been? Where's the church been? He said, you know what, Jennifer? We have always wanted to be in this lane, always. But when we would come talk to people like you, Jennifer, you'd say, well, yeah, you know what? You can be part of it, but you can't talk about God. Well, we can't be a part of it then. I said, oh, we're saying to you, you can talk about God. Please be a part of this. And they're extraordinary. We started a group called the Champions. Big efforts, particularly in this area, because Pastor Delaney is kind of from this area. And we now have 160 trained champions in Ohio who train in their church how to deal with this. Stay in your lane. And their lane has included things like becoming chaplains and working with law enforcement to go to overdose scenes to help the family. They have opened recovery homes all over the state of Ohio. There's one now totally funded, about to begin. They got the land for $1, 88 acres. It will have 100 beds in it from the faith community. But a lot of what they do, and what lots of people can do, is the simpler things, like in Pickaway County, their jail administrator felt that we have a problem. I met them originally several years ago. We did a very significant bust. That's a lot of what our office does, is the cool law enforcement stuff. And 72 people were busted. Their jail holds 110, and it was full. You know what they have to do? Ship them. Who pays for that? Everyone. So they're like, well, we have to fix this. So they started bringing programming into the jail. So that you have an inmate now who needs, they say, please write a story about what you're going to do to be okay when you leave. And they do. And then meet with JFS, Job and Family Services, their probation officer, and they decide if they're sincere. If they are, when they're released, they get them signed up for Medicaid, and they transport them to treatment based on a judge saying he'll be released to treatment. What they also do, if the inmate wants it, is they reach out to a church they work with and get a family. And I was, there one day when it happened. This guy, 19 years old, and they told him, here's something we did while, you made the decision today to do this. While this was happening, we called our church partner, and there's a family who, upon your release, will walk alongside you. And he's doing great, this kid. Doing great. So those sorts of things are not like, wow, I couldn't do that. Yes, you can. And musicians say to me, well, many of my buddies are musicians. What could we possibly do? Could you play at a recovery center? Oh, sure. We could do that. You cut hair. You want to cut hair for some of these women who are trying to get jobs? Sure. You're a dentist without borders. How about go to Portsmouth and fix some of those teeth? Great stuff, and I won't get into too much in criminal justice for you guys. Extraordinary work on behalf of law enforcement. Carol was very instrumental in this area with quick response team, which you have in Coleraine Town, all over the place now. Started with a concept from Sheriff Tharp out of Lucas County, wrote us a letter and said, I have an idea. To the point where we now hear stories of law enforcement officers being flagged down and saying, my buddy's overdosing in the car. Can you help him? To get him to treat, and they get him to treatment. It's extraordinary. And yet what they see is pretty horrendous. Here's the story. I have a Southern Ohio county getting calls about a baby crying. They go to the house. The mom is out trafficking herself for heroin. The dad's passed out. When they picked the baby up, all the skin came off its back. That's how long the baby had been in the crib. And they got those people to treatment when I can assure you they want to punch them in the face, right? They understand. So here's one of my stories, but I'm going to give you a few on things that are easy to do but make an incredible difference. So what our group does, I think, very well, among other things, but every community in Ohio is very different. So if I'm going to be in kind of an upper or kind of an elite suburb, I may have to focus on awareness, right? Because there's kind of this, not here. Oh no, not here. Yes, there. In fact, you're the target, because when you're trafficking drugs, are you going to go places where people can't buy them, or the places where they can? I think probably the places where they can. So the wealthier neighborhoods were actually kind of the first target. But there is that. Or we do events like Price Hill that Carol did, where they actually went door to door, this brave little woman, door to door in Price Hill to get people naloxone. That's what they needed. They know there's a drug problem, right? But they need help, they need treatment. So we did an event in the west side, which is kind of like Price Hill in Columbus. And we weren't going to bring in like, the big names, the mayor, the prosecutor, the attorney general, although he came. What mattered, they like know they have a problem. They're very kind of little detached. And we also understand this, that you have to deal with people where they're at. And here's what I like as the best example. I attended a meeting about reentry for prisoners, not low-level prisoners, 6-time offenders, violent prisoners, to help them get back into life and employed, and still honor the victims. So, and they said they just had a juvenile come, 16-year-old juvenile, into the prison system, and he has a pregnant girlfriend. And so they're like, well, why don't you use protection, if not for the obvious reason, for disease? And he said, why? I'm going to be dead in 4 years. Why would I? His perception is he's going to be dead in 4 years. So you can't talk to him and say, let's get you prepared for college. It doesn't work. You can't go to some of these counties and have expectations of people when they don't have food and shelter. You can't. We can't get people, we can't expect people to say, well, how come you can't get more people to your meeting? If you're in this neighborhood and you have to sit on the floor because you're afraid you're going to get shot through the window when you're watching TV, I can assure you going to a Mike DeWine town hall is not at the top of your list if you can get there. So we have to often do outreach, neighborhood to neighborhood, like what she did in Price Hill. So this one, we had a couple of the community outreach officers on a panel, and they popped in my office. Surprise! Can we see you? Like, yes. I am very happy anytime two of the brothers in blue come to my office. So this guy in the middle says, I like to tell stories. I'm like, fabulous. I like to tell stories. What do you want to talk about? He said, well, I have two. One I won't share. He actually shared it with the Attorney General that day, and let me tell you something, the Attorney General sees more horrible stuff than probably anybody I've ever met. Our office, we joke about it, like our hall is Depression Hall. There's human trafficking, heroin, victim services, child abuse issues, but our whole office, that's what we do, these horrible issues, We don't do like travel and tourism, it's not great stuff. So the guy, he says, well, how about this? Remember that, did you see that picture of the couple in the car with the kid in the back and they overdosed? I said, yeah, you, me, and the world saw that picture. What I also saw was what people wrote. Why are we saving these people? Right? Why are we saving these people? They're human beings, I guess. That's a pretty good reason in my book, but whatever. So he said, well, I had one the very same day. I was out on my beat. I was in an alley. I'm picking up needles. And you know what? They can't afford gloves. What? And they're coming into contact with fentanyl. I think we could do a fundraiser for gloves. I don't know. So he is picking up needles and sees a car pull up. It's school drop-off time. They're in the crosswalk, and he knows that they're passed out in the front. So he's going to call EMS to save them. And then, because at the time he wasn't carrying, Columbus PD was one of the later ones to carry. And then there was a whole bunch of babies who died, and I don't know, it was kind of inspiring to maybe start carrying. So he goes to the car and blocks the car with his squad car because he doesn't know if their foot's on the accelerator or on the gas. And he, their 4-year-old has gotten out of the vehicle and is walking barefoot down Sullivan Avenue. All right, what do you do? He said, well, I went and picked her up. Okay, and then what do you do? He said, well, I took her to my squad car and I got her a stuffed animal. And I gave it to her and she cried and I held her. I said, well, that's great. Do you have a budget for stuffed animals? No. Where'd you get those? He said, well, there was a big convention and Nationwide Children's Hospital had a box, and so we took the whole box. I'm like, good for you. He goes, like, they're free. Probably not the whole box, wasn't it? But so all of the officers have stuffed animals in their car, not just from this issue, but domestic violence, pulling kids, all kinds of issues. You meet any of these kids who were given one, they still sleep with it usually, because it really meant a lot to them. I said, well, would it be all right with you if at the town hall I said, hey, what if you guys collected stuffed animals and brought them to your police departments? Wouldn't that be nice? Do you understand how much that would mean to the police to do that? Anybody can do that. But I'm a panicker, and so I'm like, oh, what if it doesn't go over in the sky? And he cried in my office. So I call a friend of mine who I will always promote any businesses in the audience. I think he has made lots of money off of me doing this. I think 40% of his business comes from the goodwill work he does. So he owns several car dealerships. One's in Marysville. He's closer than you think, Bruce Daniels guy. And I said, Bruce, I got a problem. Can you help me? Here's what I want to do. He said, so he had his employees, because he started a group called Impact 60, which means anybody can give 60 minutes a week, don't you think? Yeah, I think so. Maybe just not watch that Law and Order Special Victims Unit. That's my thing, I'm sorry. So he said, I'm going to collect them. I'm going to drive them over in a Honda minivan, Odyssey. And they do. And so after he tells the story, I say, hey, you remember I was going to ask for people to do this, and I didn't? It's because, surprise, and they marched all these in. And that event was so significant because I probably in the audience had 10 people in active withdrawal. And so, who came there for treatment, because that was the main reason. We knew they didn't really care about a lot of this stuff. What we had was a tremendous resource fair where they could get their free Narcan. They could get connected to treatment. That's why we wanted them there. So for them to just kind of have this good moment was so valuable. Here's another one. And this is where the students at OSU did something I think was remarkable. And the last time I told it, I cried, so I hope that doesn't happen. There's a gentleman in Southern Ohio, his name's Dan Palmer, and he just decided that he would make a difference. He was trying to change the whole county, and like he couldn't. So he started visiting the schools. And in the one school in Portsmouth, 90% of the children live below the poverty level. The majority of those, many of those children live in homes where the parents are both addicted, and the homes don't have running water, food, anything. And this is where they're living. And so he went to visit the school and heard these stories. And I'll give you a couple. And there's, our work is challenging, and we hear some awful things. And this was the day I actually had to leave my office and go cry somewhere, because we got to be tough, right? They're not crying in front of the whole office. Jennifer's so emotional. So he writes me an email, and he said, Jennifer, you got to help me. And that's hard as a state employee. When I get this letter, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to help him. And his letter said things like, There's a second grader, and they give them those backpacks to go home. That's something anybody could do, right? Help a school with the backpacks. Because that's probably the only food they're going to have that weekend. The only time they eat is when they're at school. In the summer, you want to talk about opportunity for outreach, folks? These kids aren't eating. So it's one thing I think, everybody's divided on this, but one thing I think we can agree on is we need to help the children. I don't think anyone disagrees on that. Anyway, so he says, so the boy said, thank you very much for the backpack with the food. I really appreciate it. But I was wondering if instead you could give me underwear. I haven't had any in a year. Another boy who was in trouble at school because he was constantly late and he was going to quit. And oh, by the way, their suicide rate soaring there. Loss of hope. You have to offer hope. Like that 16-year-old. What difference does it make? I'm going to be dead when I'm 20. So he's late and he's like, you know what? I'm just going to have to quit. So his principal, knowing the situation, so, what's going on? Well, what was going on is his dad was gone, his mother was addicted to heroin, and every night he's helping her through withdrawal, and he's up all night long. He's tired. No wonder his grades are failing, right? That school, you know what they did? Put a room with a bed, and they say, come sleep a little bit. Their clothes are dirty. They have just maybe a couple of outfits. Many of them are abused. Many of them are trafficked for sex. Many girls in that school are getting pregnant, having babies, because they're being human trafficked for heroin. So he's appalled. The newspaper hears about it. They write this story. Dan calls me on Monday. Jennifer, you're not going to believe this. I'm like, Dan, I believe anything. He said, my phone has not stopped ringing from donations. Okay, good news. Tell me more about this, Dan. They donated a building to me so I can keep things for the children. Walmart called. They're donating. But I told him, I don't want used things. These kids deserve the best. That building filled up. Coca-Cola called him. They paid for winter coats for all of those children. All of them. A hotel chain called him. We have to get rid of our towels every 4 months. Could you use them? Yes. He's now going to get donated to him, most likely, a mobile shower unit that also includes a washer and dryer so that they can get their clothes clean and take a shower. And the hotel's giving, those little bottles? Guess what they have to do with them often? Get rid of them because they change sponsors, right? And all those nice towels you get at hotels, they got to get rid of them every 4 months. You could call a hotel and say, hey, when you get rid of those towels, there's a recovery center here. Could I come pick them up and give them to the recovery center? Anybody could do that, right? Anybody. What happened with the OSU kids, social work, School of Social Work, is Dan sent us 30 pages, handwritten on a fax machine. You know how you do attachments, right? Here's my attachment. You know what his attachment is? A newspaper in the mail to me. So he faxed us his list. And it was things like there's an 8-month-old boy, he could really use maybe 2 sleepers. He doesn't have any sleepers. There's a list of children like that. And so we gave it to a dean who we had just met with, School of Social Work. He said, I'll do it. I'll give it to the kids. They'll do a drive. And so about 2 months later, 3 carloads of stuff for those children, wrapped in pretty little bags, were delivered to those children in Portsmouth, Ohio. Anybody could do that. right? Anybody can do that. And don't think because I'm saying Portsmouth, it's not right here. Find them. And we need to give children hope. Simple things. Somebody says, how am I going to know who these kids are? Well, the schools can't tell you, but they can say, yeah, but I have one in my class. I remember when my kid was in school, the book clubs used to really kind of bother me because I'd give him $20, and I thought, there's a kid in that class who can't even buy a book, and they're ashamed, right? So I would give $20 to the teacher and say, for that child who can't buy a book, here's $20. We can all do something, right? We really can. And the trauma in this among children, among families, I had church elders call me and say, we don't know what to do. There was a family in our congregation, they just lost their daughter, and we don't know what to do. I said, well, what do you normally do when someone loses their daughter? Oh, well, we pray and we bring food and we offer help, and I don't understand your question. They lost their daughter. What? Do the same things, and maybe more, because they're hiding and they're stigmatized and they're embarrassed and their friends aren't associating with them and they've spent every bit of their money and remortgaged their house. And you're going to not talk to them the way you would someone else who lost their child? I don't understand it. So remember, that book is useful, but this is so much just about being good to each other. And if we all stepped in and did something, we can change this. I don't want another increase so that in 2018, I'm saying we lost 12,000 people in Ohio and people still don't care. It's not all right.